To any girls who are watching this, don't be too alarmed if this video kinda disappears halfway through. Lon'qu kinda has his issues. It's all due to his past. We'll find out about that later. But for the moment, Lon'qu is pretty much your typical Myrmidon / typical member of the Narbal / Navarre, whatever you want to call him, archetype. These are basically the first Myrmidon you get in the game, who has ridiculously high skill and speed, and usually comes with a killing edge. The only area where Lon'qu doesn't fit that criteria is Narbal characters tend to start off as enemies. But there's actually something kind of interesting here. Technically speaking, if Master Marth hadn't deposed him, Lon'qu was going to be fighting in the tournament against us as Basilio's champion, so in a way, he kinda was meant to be an enemy, which means that he pretty much does conform to the Narbal archetype if Master Marth hadn't messed with it. But anyway, so as you can see, Lon'qu has ridiculously high skill and speed growth. 75% is pretty much unprecedented by this point in the game. And his base growths in those areas are very, very high as well, having 50 in both, and having a pretty decent luck growth to back it up, and +3 caps to skill and speed. So it's pretty obvious where he excels, in hitting the enemy pretty much all the time, and dodging a lot. And as you'd expect for a Myrmidon, his weak areas are defense and resistance, with his base growths there being quite low, and having -2 caps to both, so he's a bit of a glass cannon. Though his base defense, as in the actual stat, is not all that bad for his level. I mean, it's higher than his strength. Speaking of strength, Lon'qu's 55 strength growth is alright, but compared to the standards of this game, it's a little bit lacking, which means that it can be a little unreliable sometimes. The first time I played this game, Lon'qu did get pretty considerably strength screwed. Just be warned that it does have a tendency to happen like that. Granted, Lon'qu is meant to make up for his relatively low regular damage with a very high chance of critical hits, and for that he pretty much excels. Again, that's pretty much the typical role of a Myrmidon / Swordmaster. There's not really all that much else to say about Lon'qu's stats here, really, because I've pretty much covered them already. Massively high skill and speed, and decent strength but not entirely reliable, but very weak defensively. Then again, it's not like, I mean, once he gets to higher levels, it's not like he's going to get hit much anyway. As far as class options go, Lon'qu gets a lot that use swords and one that doesn't. He also learns a lot of evasion boosting skills, so that can be pretty helpful. Starting with Avoid +10 as a Myrmidon, which is definitely one of the better, just flat boost skills out there, and is actually not that bad of a skill to actually keep on him for a while. The next one he learns there is Vantage, which Vantage got a bit of a nerf in this game compared to Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn. It only activates when you're on half HP or less, much like its appearance in Fire Emblem 4. I mean, it can be useful, but I mean, especially with the high critical hit weapons, go first, then critical them, so they can't really do anything to you. But Lon'qu has no access to Wrath or Vengeance to really add to that, and the fact that it needs him to be on half HP, I mean, really at higher levels, Lon'qu is not actually going to be getting hit enough to even be on half HP most of the time. Although if he does get hit once, he probably will be reduced to pretty low HP, but due to his low defenses, but I guess it can be alright, but it mainly combos well with a skill that he learns in the Assassin tree. But first, let's cover Swordmaster, pretty much the class he was designed to promote into. As a Swordmaster, he'll have even higher skill and speed, and he'll gain the Astra skill at level 5, always useful, but with his relatively low damage output, he might not be hitting all that hard with it, since it's half of your base damage, and his base damage is already fairly low. Then again though, I mean, Astra's always pretty awesome, and with his high skill stat, he should be activating it quite often. Swordfarer is great because he has access to a huge number of classes that use swords, and that's pretty much his main weapon of choice, so having +5 strength all the time when armed with one of those weapons is very, very useful. Now, Assassin, yeah, like I mentioned before, learns a skill that kinda combos well with Vantage, maybe. Lethality, which is pretty much always awesome. The chance of an instant kill is always good to have. and with Lon'qu's great skill growth and +3 cap, he'll be activating this quite often. I said it combos well with Vantage before because, well, think about it. If you activate Vantage, you automatically go first and have a chance of instant killing the enemy before they even have a chance to do anything to you, so that can be a pretty cool combo, but a little unreliable. Pass is always a useful skill to have, letting you slip straight through the enemies. His other class option is Thief, and I've already discussed Thief quite a lot. Lock Touch and Movement +1 are already, they're both useful skills to have. Movement +1 combos very well with Pass as well, and it can also combo with the Deliverer skill that he learns from Griffin Rider. By combining those skills, he'll gain a movement boost of +2 when he's paired up with someone, so that can actually be pretty useful. His other option here is Trickster, and honestly, I really don't think Lon'qu does this best. Let me just say, I know that I said this already for Kellum, so I'll just say this. Pretty much every character who has the Trickster option who doesn't start out as a Trickster is terrible in that class. That's pretty much a sad fact when it comes to Tricksters. If you don't have a decent magic growth, you are going to be very, very bad as a Trickster. But you can learn some pretty decent skills from that class, particularly Lucky 7, which gives +20 accuracy, not so useful, and evasion, very useful, during the first 7 turns of a battle. Like I said, 7 turns is actually a very long time in Fire Emblem terms, so it's actually a very good skill, as is Acrobat, which will let you cross any terrain at 1 movement cost. So, yeah, run across water, run across mountains. You can do a lot of things with that skill, especially combined with Movement +1 and Deliverer, although that does use up 3 out of your 5 skill slots. His other class tree is Wyvern Rider, and this is a little weird because this is the one class tree that he has that doesn't use swords in any way. Yeah, none of its options can use swords at all, so the problem with that is he's going to be stuck using E-ranked weapons for quite a while in those classes, so just watch out for that. But if you want to help Lon'qu's strength a bit, you might want to consider reclassing to Wyvern Rider because it does provide a pretty major boost to the strength growth, and to defense as well, but Lon'qu's defense is never going to be a strong suit anyway. The extra help to strength, though, really could help, especially if you feel that he's getting strength screwed as a Myrmidon. Because of that, maybe, at least early on, the Strength +2 skill could be somewhat okay for him, but there are much, much better skills out there. It's kind of a waste of a skill slot. Tantivity is actually an interesting option for him. It gives accuracy and evasion +10 if there are no allies within a 3-tile radius. Now, normally I usually don't suggest this skill, but this actually stacks with a whole lot of other skills that Lon'qu learns that can boost evasion. In particular, Quick Burn from Wyvern Lord, which will give +15 accuracy and evasion on the first turn, and it'll diminish over time, but it is certainly better than the equivalent Slow Burn. Here's the main reason why this can be kind of useful though. You can stack Avoid +10, Tantivity, Lucky 7, and Quick Burn, which, while it will use up 4 out of your 5 skill slots, will give Lon'qu a whopping 55 boost to evasion, at least on the first turn. And combined with his already naturally high speed and luck, he can become pretty much unhittable with a combination like that. This does require no allies to be within a 3-tile radius of him, however, but it's definitely kind of a pretty good boost, and he's one of the few characters who can actually reach an evasion boost that high with skills, so that's actually definitely an option to consider for him. It'll also give a massive accuracy boost as well, but it's not like he really needs that. I mean, on top of his amazing skills, swords are the most accurate physical weapon type anyway, so again, not like he really needs it. Also, if you want extra evasion, you can also go for Swordbreaker and Lancebreaker, which will give +50 to accuracy and evasion against enemies equipped with the particular weapon. Lancebreaker could actually be very useful to him from Griffin Knight, mainly because, as most of his classes primarily use swords, having the extra evasion against enemies with a weapon triangle advantage is certainly helpful. And stacking that on top of things like Lucky 7 and Tantivity and Avoid +10, yeah, Lon'qu's evasion can get very, very high. I mean, he's no Ced from Fire Emblem 4, but still. So in general, Lon'qu's skill options and class options mostly lean towards making him a very good and fast sword user and improving his evasion pretty considerably. By stacking a lot of those skills, you can definitely achieve some pretty good results with him. As for his voice actor, Lon'qu is voiced by Travis Willingham, and he's someone who's done a lot of voice work, especially lately. He's the current voice of Knuckles the Echidna in the Sonic series, but not only that, he also plays Gaius from Tales of Exilia. Don't get confused, there actually is a character named Gaius in this game. He is not voicing him. He voices someone named Gaius in another game. But seriously, Gaius in Tales of Exilia pretty much looks like a ridiculously superpowered Swordmaster, so I guess it makes sense. He's also Guile in Street Fighter, Theodore in Persona 3 and Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, and Yodai Higashizawa, aka Mr. McCooking Puns, in The World Ends With You. Yeah, he's had quite a lot of work as far as voice acting concerns, and he usually tends to play very deep-voiced characters. One interesting thing about him, though, he's actually married to a fellow voice actor who plays someone in this game. However, Lon'qu cannot marry this character, for reasons that are, well, you'll find out why later. Funnily enough, though, Travis Willingham also voices another character in this game, who the character voiced by his wife can marry. Interesting that, but that's for later.